Hey everyone! Today we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the real engine room of any successful company: employees' training and development. This is how organizations and the people inside them really grow. So let's jump right in. This, right here, is the question every single manager thinks about. So how do you turn a good employee into a great one? Well, it's not magic, right? It's a process. It's about spotting that spark of potential and then deliberately building the skills to let it shine. And today, we're going to break down exactly how that works. All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we'll get on the same page about what training actually is. Then we'll put on our detective hats and figure out who needs it and why. After that, we'll look at the different ways to get it done. And finally, we'll talk about the big picture: creating the next generation of leaders. Okay, let's start at square one. What are we really talking about when we say employee training? Because, it's so much more than just a welcome packet or a quick seminar. At its absolute core, training is all about closing a gap. You've got the skills an employee has now and the skills they need to crush it at their job. Training is the bridge between those 2 points. And the key word here is permanent. The goal is a lasting change, a real improvement in how they do their work every day. Now, this is a really important distinction to make. People use the words training and development interchangeably all the time, but they're not the same thing. Training is for the now. It's about getting better at the job you have today. Development, that's about the future. It's about building those bigger, more conceptual skills for where you're going next. And that's especially true for future managers. Okay, so we get it. We need to close those skill gaps. But how do you even find them in the first place? Well, that brings us to what I like to call the manager's diagnostic toolkit, the ways you can pinpoint exactly where help is needed. Think of this as a 4-point inspection. You can start small, at the individual level, by looking at performance reviews. Then you can zoom out and analyze the job itself. What skills does it actually require? From there, you go even bigger and look at the whole organization. Is there a department where everyone's quitting? That might be a sign. And finally, sometimes the easiest way is to just ask. Employee surveys can tell you exactly what people feel they need. So, once you know what's needed, the big question is, how do you actually deliver the training? Generally, it all falls into 2 main buckets, 2 different paths you can take. The big difference here is the environment. On-the-job training is basically learning to swim by jumping right into the pool. You learn by doing, in the middle of all the action, and you can apply what you learn immediately. Off-the-job training is more like taking lessons on the side. It pulls you out of the day-to-day chaos so you can learn in a focused, simulated environment without all the pressure. So let's talk about some of these on-the-job methods. Job rotation is fantastic. It moves you through different roles so you get a 360-degree view of the business. Internships are a great mix of real-world tasks and guided learning. And then you have the classic apprenticeship, right? The age-old model of learning a craft from someone who's already mastered it. And on the flip side, you've got this whole world of off-the-job methods. Vestibule training is a cool one. It's where you learn on the actual equipment, but in a separate area away from the main production line, so you can make mistakes without messing anything up. And things like business games and role-playing, they create these awesome, safe spaces to practice really tough skills, like negotiating a deal or handling a crisis. Now let's shift gears a little. We're moving beyond just training someone for their current job and into the much bigger, more strategic world of developing the company's future leaders. And trust me, this is a whole different ballgame. This quote just hits the nail on the head. You can't just cross your fingers and hope that your best employees will magically become great managers someday. Relying on experience alone is way too slow, and honestly, it's a total crapshoot. You need a deliberate, structured plan. So how do you actually build that plan? Well, here are 4 really powerful ways to do it on the job. Coaching is huge. It's that personalized one-on-one guidance. We've talked about job rotation, but for managers, it's about seeing how the whole business machine fits together. Training positions, like being an assistant to a senior exec, give you a front row seat to how the big decisions get made. And planned work is about throwing them a challenge, like leading a really important project, and seeing how they handle it. I want to double-click on coaching for a second. It is probably the most effective method on that list, but it's also the hardest to do right. For a manager to be a good coach, they have to fight the urge to just give all the answers. They have to let the other person struggle and figure it out. And they have to be secure enough to see the value in training their own successor, which is not always easy. And of course, sometimes the best thing you can do is send your future leaders away for development. Taking them out of the daily grind lets them focus 100% on learning. It exposes them to totally new ideas from outside the company's bubble, and they get to build a professional network that could be valuable for years to come. So let's bring it all home. What are the big takeaways? It's pretty simple, really. 1. Training is for now. It fixes current skill gaps. 2. Development is for later. It's a long-term investment in your future leaders. And 3. There's no magic bullet. The method you pick has to match the specific problem you're trying to solve. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. We all know the world of work is changing like crazy. AI and automation are reshaping jobs right before our eyes. So as we look to the future, what kind of training is actually going to matter most? Is it going to be technical skills? Or is it the stuff that's harder to automate? Like creativity, critical thinking, and empathy? That's the question every organization should be asking itself right now.